The Minister of Finance, when she was talking, she talked about the vision and the dream, the Nigeria of our dream. And I think all too often, when we come to sessions like this, we focus on the negatives. We focus on what doesn't work. And we're never going to get to where we need to get to if all we're doing is focusing on what we see immediately around us and all the problems. The problems, we need to look at it from a different angle to see, okay, what opportunities do these problems present, and what do we need to do to surmount these problems?
So for group 2, we looked at investment facilitation. What key changes need to be made to enable Nigeria to compete more effectively for capital investment? So we looked at 4 broad areas. What needs to be done? Who needs to do this? When does this need to be done? And then how will this be done? So looking at what needs to be done, we looked at 3 key points. We looked at infrastructure. Under infrastructure, we looked at roads, power, transport, social infrastructure, which is education and healthcare. We looked at enabling environment. On enabling environment, we have favorable policies, tax policies, consistent policies to be able to stimulate private sector participation. We looked at security, which is insurgency, food security, all the various aspects of security. We looked at political stability. We mentioned earlier that the theme of this summit is steering gears. We can't continue to do the same thing and expect better results. So we have to change what we're doing wrong. So looking at going from 2019 to 2050, that's 30 years. You have 8 regimes in between. How do you ensure that what you're agreeing today will be sustained in 30 years? We need to improve accountability and transparency in our processes to be able to create confidence. Then who needs to do this? Government primarily, or the private sector needs to drive it. We need to strengthen our PPP processes. We need to privatize more of our state-owned enterprises because government is not efficient in running businesses. So there's no use creating a heavy center when nobody would drive it.
Okay, so political instability affects us all in every sector. And to put reforms in place for political stability, it's not something that we can sit here and begin to itemize. So we didn't look at that. So the first thing is the ease of doing business. And in ease of doing business, we have incentives. Already there are tax incentives. But also what we're saying, we have interest rate incentives as well that we need. Because one key point that came out is if you invest in government securities, it's tax-free. So how does that compare if you're doing other investments? And then I'm sure there are other, well, under the ease of doing business is also the processes that we face when we want to do investments. The second thing that we came up strongly with is to replicate the Nigerian local content policy that we already have in place for the oil and gas, because we see that this has structures and it is working. So this has been put in place for the oil and gas sector. We have seen that it is working. What we're saying is that this same structure should be replicated across other sectors, of course taking into consideration their nuances. The third thing we speak about is crowdfunding, and to have, will it be an information portal or something where you can easily access where funds are needed, what sort of sectors need the funds, what SMEs, what have you, but to have a portal that you can do crowdfunding. I think we have one now for Agric, and that is, as far as I know, it is working well. The who, most of this, unfortunately, will lie majorly with government, all tiers of government, but also with private sector. So there is going to be public-private partnership. The when we have to start almost immediately. So we have to look at where we can have quick wins and put things in place.
So our task was to try and figure out what it would take to retain the investments when they actually come in, so as to be able to regenerate the environment, the business environment, and retain the money essentially here. The first thing that we did was look at what policies the government would have to implement with respect to issues that private sector will be concerned about. Certainly, at the end of the day, these are business folks who want to make sure that they're going to be able to retain their, get attractive returns on their investments, tax incentives by the government, and also being able to repatriate their funds when they decide they want to do that. Who is responsible for most of these factors? The government is essentially responsible. Primarily the federal government, but also state governments also have a role to play in terms of, we've heard the terminology, ease of doing business. And for us, the way what we titled overarching discussion was continuing to maintain an environment that's attractive to doing business. So they've come because they think this is an environment they should bring their money into. The thing is to maintain that psychology. Certainly local governments also have a role to play, and of course the private sector primarily is going to use the funds, but they also have a role to play in the sense that it's important that our private folks also conduct themselves in a very responsible and transparent manner so that they can serve as ambassadors for other investors, other private sector folks who are trying to attract foreign direct investment. Because if people invest in the environment and there's no corporate governance and the monies disappear, then of course it's going to have an adverse effect. So the agencies of the federal government in terms of who, NIPC, NEBSA, the Export Promotion Zone, Immigration, Visa and Arrival, Corporate Affairs Commission, is the CAM bill. There's a Companies and Allied Matters Repeal and Reenactment Bill. It's passed by the House, well, by the National Assembly. We need Mr. President to sign. It's very, very key. Once it's signed, you can incorporate that limited liability company, one director, one shareholder. You can have private, you can have limited liability for partnerships, and so many other things that are very innovative. I think we're very transforming. And of course, prompt approval of applications to agencies. If they don't approve by time certain, the application should be deemed approved. Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much.